All right, so first you're gonna take these two halves of the main body and lay them out, and then I'm just going to tape along here with masking tape just to make it easier to glue this connection between these two halves. I start with just a few small pieces of tape just to help make sure everything's lined up. And then this is gonna be the bottom of your aircraft where these cutouts for. This is for the long piece of carbon fiber here and here. And then I'm gonna add another cut straight through here where the motor mount's gonna be. And that's gonna be for one more piece of carbon fiber to go underneath the motor mount. And that just helps to keep the motor mount nice and solid and help stiffen up the plane. All right, so now I got all that tape on there, and that's just to help hold the seam together. So then when you go to glue these two halves together, it just kind of helps hold it. You just kind of open it up like that, fill that whole crack with some hot glue, and call it good. I just use a spare piece of foam that I'll cut up to scrape all the joint lines so that the glue's nice and clean. All right, now you can just take the tape off. It's been like 2 minutes since I glued it, so it's just about all it takes. Like I said, I just use the tape to help hinge the two pieces together so that it's easier to glue everything. Oh, and it looks like I'm peeling a little bit of the paper off, which this white paper's not, this white foam's not the best. I like the brown foam normally, but it does all right. My last couple of Stingrays have been out of the white foam. All right, and the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna use a piece of foam that's like a straight edge. And this one actually is pretty good as far as like a measurement piece for where the next piece of carbon should go. So I'm just taking this piece of foam, and this, you'll see this, I cut it off of one of the pieces that was come out, but it's just this nice long straight, it's about 1 inch thick. And this, you can see where there's these two little dimples. And that's where you're gonna wanna line up the holes for your motor mount. This bad boy right here, that's gonna line up with those dimples. And so then you can see, with us using this at about 1 inch, it's gonna put that carbon fiber right behind those holes and make it to where that's a nice strong brace for this motor mount. And I'm just lining up this inside edge with the inside of that motor mount hole. And then I'll probably just go to about a width of the foam. And draw my second line. And then you can just kind of see that there. And this is the carbon we're going to use, so as long as it's thick enough for that carbon to fit in there, then you'll be good to go. All right, and then to clean these carbon pieces out, these little slots, it might be hard to see, but there's pre-cut slots in the foam. And again, these is gonna be the bottom of your airplane. Mine, you can see, it looks like this cut actually went all the way through, but normally it shouldn't go all the way through. You'll want it just on the one side of the foam. Not a big deal either way. The first couple I built, I forgot to put the carbon in first and ended up just having to cut notches into the top. But the easiest thing I found is to use an Allen wrench, or just like here's one of my drivers, and I just kind of pluck the foam out of that channel, and it just kind of pulls, and the paper will come off easy, but then getting the rest of the foam out can kind of be a little annoying. But just scraping it out with anything really, probably just a flat blade screwdriver or whatever, works well for getting the foam out. So you'll see that carbon fiber will fit down in there nice and snug. And I'll just cut that with a Dremel tool or a hacksaw, whatever you have that can cut that. Make sure to use a respirator or something like carbon dust is bad, I guess, for your lungs. So don't want to breathe that in while you're cutting the carbon. We'll go ahead and cut out this third channel. I like to just use my little scalpel knife. It works pretty good in the foam. Any sort of utility blade, whatever, will work just fine. use this as a little bit of a guide. You want to just try to cut this top layer of paper and not go all the way through. Normally, we use hot glue and white Gorilla Glue, but this one's literally being built to get knocked out of the air. The clear Gorilla Glue, not white Gorilla Glue. Clear Gorilla Glue is good for places in Arizona when it's hot, because the hot glue can wiggle around some when the heat warms up the glue, and your control surfaces for your servos or whatever stuff could just kind of come apart a little bit. So it's better just to use the Gorilla Glue for that. But since you're up in Idaho where it's cold, or whatever, you can just use hot glue and probably be all right. All right, so I've got my piece of carbon. I'm just gonna lay it in that channel, back it up there, and then what I'm gonna do to mark where I need to cut is I'm just gonna take a piece of this tape and line it up with the end of that slot, and then I'll just cut at the edge of the tape, and that will give me the piece I need for each of those slots. And then I'm just gonna make 2 that are that same size, and then that'll give me a nice piece of carbon for the center. It's almost, yeah, it'll just basically be a T right there in the center. It won't quite be long enough to go all the way there, but yeah, it should work out real nice. All right, so I got the carbon cut, and then usually before I put any glue in, I like to just push it into the channel to make sure that the channel is nice and big enough for the carbon. You got your centerpiece there, push that in, just to make sure everything's good to go. All right, and then I'll pull that out and get ready to glue it. All right, and I'll just do this one piece at a time. Just fill that channel with a little bit of hot glue. A little bit goes a long way. You want to try and use the least amount of glue as possible just to keep the weight down. Just enough to do what you need it to do. So we'll get that first one in here. Perfect. Glue the next one. Now we're going to go ahead and glue this last bar. Center that, a little bit off, hot glue. So we took that main piece, set that aside because it's pretty much ready to go. And we're going to get these 2 pieces next. This is going to be the very bottom of the airplane. So we're going to go ahead and attach these 2 together first. And just like last time, I like to just take a couple small pieces of tape, line it up. And then I'm just gonna fold that open and glue it. Sometimes if you wanted to, you could like take a piece of tape and tape this side down like this, bend it open, tape the other side so that it holds open for you to just pour that glue in there. Finish it up here, just so, like, again, just a little bit of glue that goes a long way. Hold it nice and flat, push it together. All right, so now that it's had a second to dry, that glue's set, take off our tape. We can bring back this main piece, and you'll see this is just gonna line up right on it, like so. For me, just so I don't get glue on this part where it's not supposed to, I'll just put glue on here. Now, if I was using Gorilla Glue, I would just use a couple spots of hot glue just to kind of help hold it in place. Then I would mainly just use Gorilla Glue, but since we are just using hot glue, I'm just gonna do it all with hot glue. Oh, I did not want glue up there. Dang it. So you don't want to put glue all the way up on the front because that's going to be your nose that curls up. We're going to be cutting that off. Yeah. So I guess it's not a huge deal, but I definitely didn't want to glue up there. And so you want to be kind of quick with this so that you can get it all on there before the glue starts to cool off too much. But we'll flip this over, line up this right here, get it all centered, and push it all down all the way to the back. Yeah, and I should not, so you can see here the part I messed up, I should not have put any glue in that whole section there. So while that's still a little warm, I'm going to try and wipe that off. Give that a minute to make sure everything's stuck together nice. All right, so now that we've got these pieces glued on the bottom, we're just gonna flip it over, and the next pieces we'll glue in are these two, which are gonna be our little fuselage. So you can kind of see these two are kind of straight in line, and then you're gonna have a little bend right after this little notch, which will then straighten out the front, so then the front all settles in. But I'll just, usually just start at the back there, and then get that bent, and you can see it just pushes in there. Nice. There you go, just like that. And then you can do that same thing with that other one, just to get them so they're ready to go. Just like that. Boom. Just kidding, we gotta glue it. So for me, I like to just put the glue along here because you got holes on the bottom there. You don't want all the glue coming out the bottom. So I'm just gonna put the glue on the side of these tabs, and then along the bottom of the piece of foam, and then on the side of the tab, and then along the bottom, and then along the side, and along the bottom. Oh, my glue stick's coming out. And then along the bottom of this front piece just until the curve starts. And then I'm just gonna slide that right in there. And then using one of these, I just took an extra piece of foam and cut it up into a bunch of these little squares. You just take that and wipe right along that edge. And that just kind of helps seal all the glue right into that. Nice and clean. And then if you got any drops like I do, you can just come back here and wipe them off. Good to go. And I'll do the same thing with this one. Just along here. And then along this bottom edge, and then along here, and then along the bottom. And then along the bottom of that, up into the curve. That in there, and then just scrape all the excess glue out. And make sure those are in there nice and secure. All right, for this next part, what you want to do is, this is going to be the part that curls over the front to make your nose. And so we're just going to want to cut off the paper so that it's easier to bend that foam. Because what you do is you cut off the paper on the inside, and then that makes it easy to bend it. Allows the foam to stretch the way you need it to for that foam to come off, or for that bend to happen. And so you can just get an edge started. The paper will peel off pretty easy. And then after you peel all the paper off, you're going to want to use a straight edge, like a ruler or something, to put a bunch of lines or just grooves into the foam on this side. So you'll just take it and you'll push down hard into the foam. I'm just going to use the back of one of our big kitchen knives. Like I said, you could use a ruler, whatever. You don't want to cut the foam though, that's why I'm going to use the black where it's not stiff or not sharp. And I'm just going to push that down into there without cutting myself. And you're just going to do that about every 1/16 of an inch or so. Just push in, get a nice crease in there in that foam. And that's just going to make the foam curl a lot easier. This is probably a really bad idea. This is the first time I've tried doing this with a kitchen knife. I don't know where my ruler's at. But if I start bleeding, you know why. So that should do the trick for that. And then this is just gonna get curled, right? And the way I like to do that is after you put the glue on there, you can just take that front of the nose and roll it over and then hold it like that so that then the glue is just taking up that nose is just wrapped perfectly around those front edges, and you've got it all held on there nice and perfect. Get it to curl smoothly here. Work it a little bit. So we're just going to take this glue, put it along both sides of the edges there. And like I said, I just like to take that and roll it right onto that. And just hold it like that for a second. Let that glue harden. Oh, didn't hold it quite long enough. Scrape off this excess. Looks like I need a tiny bit more glue right here. Just so that'll hold. All right, so next we have these two pieces, and these are just gonna be going right here to make the top part of your KF airfoil. And they just kind of line up with the front of the airplane and then just butt up to the sides of the fuselage here. So they're just gonna be glued on just like that. And luckily with this being two pieces like that, you can do them one at a time. So again, I'll just take this one, flip it over, do all the glue on the actual piece here. So I guess where you want it to be. And if you can, just try to get it right down to the end there. Just like that. Line it up. Plenty of pressure. And then just hold it there for a minute. If you wanted to, you could run a bead of glue right there and then wipe it off with a piece of foam just to kind of help hold it there. Sure, we'll do that or not. Adds a little bit of weight, but might make it a little bit more durable. And then you can just take that piece of foam and wipe it. All right, next we're gonna go ahead and add our vertical stabilizer. With this one, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put glue on both sides of this tab. And then I'm gonna put glue here and here, so then that you can just set that on there and just hold it in there and let it, try to hold it up as straight as you can. And then we're gonna be adding some braces to that here in a minute. These two spots of glue. And then just a little bit here on each side. line that up on there. Hold it nice and straight, wipe off any excess glue. Lift it up off the table a little bit, make sure it doesn't get glued onto the table from any glue seeping out on the bottom. And then, yeah, just try to hold that on there as straight as you can. We'll just let that dry for a second. Just sit on top of this piece of tape. And then the very last piece, which you don't have to glue, that's basically all the gluing we have to do. For this stuff, you're gonna glue in your servos and your control horns and stuff. But this last piece, your top cover, this you're just gonna tape right here at the front of the nose. I usually just put a piece of tape across the top, and then I open it up all the way and have it basically flat open like that. And then I put another piece of tape on the inside so it's against that flat part, and then just kind of help crease that. And then one more thing we can do here to help with our enclosure here in a minute is you can just take one of these scrap pieces that you had cut, or actually we'll cut a piece off of this narrower piece here, and we're just going to make a little crossbar across the top back there for us to add some Velcro to hold it closed. So I'm just going to cut this straight, close enough to straight, and then let's see, let's cut at a little bit of an angle actually so it lines up with that. And then so that'll fit right on there, no problem. So then what I like to do is you can just notch out just a tiny bit, the same width, thickness as the foam on the side, on each side. And then peel off the foam from the paper, so then you just have that paper tab that you can glue right there on top of that. And just do that on both sides. So then this piece will just fit in there just like that. Glue it in place. And that'll make a perfect little spot for Velcro to help hold your hatch closed. And you just need a little bit of Velcro, it doesn't take much. So I'm just gonna put glue in this corner on each of these. And then just put that on there. Ooh, that's hot. Hold that together. There we go. All right, and then like I mentioned with this top piece, this hatch, you're just gonna put some tape right here across the top. I already did that. And then you're just gonna pull that open, and then you're gonna put another piece of tape right here on the inside. I like to just use some heavy duty packing tape. This is Gorilla brand, whatever brand you want is fine. Let me just get that lined up on there. I need tons of overlap. And then just push this over so it's all flat. And then tuck that down on the inside. Boom, just like that. Next thing we're going to want to do is bevel the edges. So a couple places you have to bevel. Just basically the top and bottom, right along here, right along this whole edge, top and bottom, and then right here to the front also on both sides. This you can leave flat back here, and then on your control surface, where this opens up, you're going to want to open that up, and you're going to want to bevel both sides of that corner so that there's plenty of room for the control surface to pull down. And you can just use a razor blade, a box cutter, whatever. I've got a thing that I 3D printed that has a little razor blade in it that just is perfect for cutting the bevels. Like so. Just like that. All right, next we're gonna go ahead and add our little stabilizers for the vertical stabilizer. Now these are designed, they've got a little airfoil shape to them, and so you want that airfoil shape pointed forward, and then if you look, they've got these little legs that go into the foam, and they're staggered so that when you have both airfoils forward, they don't hit each other and they line up like that. So you wanna make sure to do that into the foam. The first few I didn't realize that, and I thought that they should line up, and I did them this way, but then one of these was backwards for the airfoil. So you just want to make sure to line those up just like that. And what you have included, or I think I sent you one, is this little U-shaped thing, and this is just a template piece for helping you find exactly where your pieces need to go. And you want to just basically put them here about a 1/2 inch so that the top where it's going into the foam is about a 1/2 inch back from the front there. And so you're just going to take that, make sure you've got the correct part. So on the right side, when you're looking backwards at the plane, you've got the lower little leg sticking into the foam. So you're going to use the lower on your little gauge here. And so you're just going to take that back about an inch, maybe 1/2 inch, and you're just going to poke that into the foam. And that's going to give you that nice line there for where your thing's going to go. And then what you do, since the other side on the bottom is going to be the further one out, is you just rotate that 90 degrees, line it up with where you put that other one, and then you're just going to poke that into the bottom, and that sets up both spots. So then when you go and you stick this in here, it's just ready to go. It goes right in, just like that, and that's going to support your vertical stabilizer. And so you just do that on both sides, put some hot glue in both of those holes, and then stick your vertical stabilizer in there. All right, now we'll just do the same thing on this other side.
Hey, babe.
Yeah.
Your stargazing equipment, can it be used? Like, is it easy to use or no?
Yeah.
Would I be able to use it?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, why not? For a mutual?
Yeah.
All right, next we can go ahead and glue in our control horns. These ones that I've got with this one look a little bit different than the ones that you'll have with your kit. Yours has a little flat spot, but basically the idea is that these holes that you have here for the control wire to go into, you want those to line up right with the hinge, and that'll give you the best torque and blah, 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 the best geometry as far as controlling everything goes. And these are just simple. You can basically just push it down into the foam and then put some glue in there and redo it. Yeah, so these are super simple. I like to line up my setup so that the servo, I usually just bring it so it's straight out, and then I go about a 1/2 inch past the carbon fiber, right? And so then you take that and you take something, just some sort of straight edge down to where the control surface is, and that'll tell you where you'd want to put your control horn down there so that it lines up with the servo. Again, try to line it up so the holes are right over the hinge. Poke where you want it. You can take a knife and add a couple little slits just to make it easier to get through the paper. Push it in there real good to get the holes in there, and then put some glue in there and hold your control horn in there. And then again, you can use a spare piece of foam to wipe off any excess glue. Let that sit for a minute, it'll be good to go. So yeah, bring that servo out about a 1/2 inch past, and then line that up so it's just about straight. And then, so I should have done this before I put the servo in there, but I forgot. But you're gonna want to center the servo and then put your horn on before you actually put the servo in there, just to make life a little bit easier. So I've got this little servo center here. All right, so that's centered. Grab us one of these servo horns. Good. Take my little screwdriver and the screw and put that screw in there. So let's do that with the other servo before I forget. So this one's going to be mirrored to that one, just like this. Stick her down. Put that horn on there. Make sure that looks right. Looks correct. Go ahead and put the screw in. Alright, so then same as the other side, come out about 1/2 inch. Make it so the cord's just about straight to the fuselage. And then start cutting it in. There we go. And then just like the other side, I'll put a piece of tape on the bottom. Set the servo down in there. Push it onto that tape nice and good, and then some hot glue around it. Just like that, we're pretty much done with all the hot gluing stuff. All right, so next we'll go on to mounting our motor. And like I mentioned before, there's a couple little dots that have been punched into the foam, and that's basically where you're gonna wanna line up the edge of your mount there. And you want the prop, so it's about 1 inch away from this inside edge of the opening for the prop. And one thing you can do is you can go and tape all of this, and that just kind of helps hold things together a little bit better to help with durability, longevity of the aircraft. But what I like to do at this point is I will line my motor up where I want it to be. Like I said, lined right up with those divots. And then I used to use screws to hold these in, but I'm just going to use zip ties, which will work really well. So I just need a couple of holes punched through. So I'm going to mark where these holes are going to be. I'm just going to use this little small Allen wrench to poke the holes into the foam. Make sure that's all looks nice and straight. And then I'm just going to go on the outside of each of those holes and poke a second hole, and that's where your zip tie will come back through to help to hold that mount in place. So you can see there we got these 8 holes, and we're just gonna support it with in the back with my hand, and I'm gonna just force this whole thing through just like that. Before you mount your motor on there, it's a really good idea to just run a big piece of tape all the way across, all the way down that bottom side. just to help keep it from getting scuffed up too much in the on the dirt and gravel and grass. And then when it comes to taping this, you'll want to tape basically all of this here, which is just this extra little piece of foam on it, top and bottom. And that's basically because that's where you're going to end up grabbing the plane, and that's where it's going to need the most protection from like the oils in your hand or whatever. If you just tape top and bottom all of this surface and then you leave this back part all open, then that's going to be the lightest and the best way for it to go. Just have that tape on the front parts there. And yeah, you can do that after you get all this stuff on there or before, whatever. We're also going to be putting a little skid plate here in the front, so we'll go over that here in a second. Trim off this extra tape here. I also like to tape this whole top flap because you're going to be moving that around a lot, so it's good to keep that nice and protected. So since I put that tape on there, we're going to just re-poke these holes for the zip ties to go through. All right, so you're going to put your zip ties through on the outside holes, and then you want to make sure to grab the skid plate for the bottom. And you've got two skid plates. One has 2 bumps on it, and that's for the very front, and then this one only has 1, and that's for the opposite side of your motor mount. So first you're going to slide. Well, I guess, yeah, so we're going to be going back down through this. So you're going to just take these zip ties that you've already pushed through, run them down through, and back to the top of the airplane, just like that. All right, now we're going to do the front skid plate here, and this just kind of goes right there towards the front, centered. And what I'm going to do with this is, it's good to have something on the other side to support it. You could use like a popsicle stick or something like that. I've just got an old prop that's busted, and so I'm just going to cut a chunk of that off and use that as a back support for this front skid plate. And then just like the motor mount, I'm going to use my Allen wrench to poke holes. So you just have those 2 zip ties through there like that. Put this old busted prop down here. Trim it a tiny bit. Mainly you're just using this to try and spread out the load so it doesn't rip through the foam. Not that there's a lot of force on it, but it helps. And that is what it looks like. One thing you can do, you've got like a little step down right here. You've got this little step. You can take some spare foam and fill that all in. And then that way it's nice and flat, because you're going to want to have your battery there pretty far forward. And then you also have to mount your camera gear there so it pokes through the front. And that's some of the next things we've got to do is poke that hole in there. Here are examples of a couple of finished airplanes. So you can see I've just taped all of this right here where it's shiny. These little things for your servos are awesome. And then you can do like this where I just use zip ties as like a servo connecting rod guide thing. Or I included some of the 3D prints where it's like these. This is my nicer one. So this one you can see I wanted it to last a little bit longer, so I taped all of it. That's gonna make it a little bit heavier but a little more durable, whereas this one, I just taped this here where you're gonna use your hands and stuff on it. And then you can see you just have your, here's my video setup, video transmitter. Right there on the front, I just have that. That's a little analog version because this is getting crashed. And then you got to usually put the ESC there on the side, receiver, with the antenna out, and then boom, right back there to the motor. And then I'll put a little tape on the receivers, but yeah, that's the finished product. This one I didn't add any air scoops because I kind of forgot. Here you can see I got this little round one here on top, and then I like that longer one on the side. And that helps just pull air in, right in, and then go right across your ESC, just to help keep everything nice and cool. But yeah, they're a lot of fun. Let me know if you have any other questions.